This video is about Osiris raises temple until Seth destroys altar. If this myth excites you, please like the video, share it with friends, and write in the comments how it pulls you into the adventure. # Part 1 The Rise of the Temple. In shadow of the ancient pyramids of Kemet, the sun dipped low, casting golden rays over the land. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and the sound of distant drums as Osiris, the god of the afterlife, surveyed his people. His emerald skin shimmered under the twilight glow, and his heart swelled with hope. He envisioned a grand temple, an eternal sanctuary where the souls of the departed could find peace and where the living could seek guidance. Osiris raised his arms to the heavens, and the winds responded, swelling in a dance of devotion. The sky darkened as the clouds gathered, and he called upon the divine powers of the earth. From the soil, stones rose like titans, each hewn by unseen hands into perfect blocks, glimmering with the promise of eternity. "Rise, my people, let us build a temple worthy of the gods," he proclaimed, his voice echoing through the valley. The mortals, inspired by his vision, gathered with bricks and mortar, carving their labor into the very essence of their lives. Yet, in the heart of the land, far removed from the fervor of Osiris's work, the storm brewed. Seth, the god of chaos, jealousy, and the desert storms, watched from his darkened lair, seething with resentment. He despised Osiris' serene disposition and the love that the people showered upon his brother. "Foolish mortals," Seth sneered, his voice like the crackling of lightning. "You believe in the sanctity of Osiris. I shall show you the power of chaos." In the dead of night, when shadows stretched across the land, Seth summoned his minions, monsters of despair and fury. They slithered from the cracks of the earth, their eyes filled with malevolence. A legion of serpents, scorpions, and shadowy beasts gathered at his command, ready to unleash destruction. As dawn broke, the people of Kemet rejoiced, their labor culminating in the glorious edifice of the Temple of Osiris, standing tall against the rising sun. Soldiers clad in bronze, adorned with feathers and ankh symbols, protected the site, their hearts imbued with the strength of their conviction. "Let this temple stand as a beacon for the lost souls," shouted Nephis, the goddess of the night winds. Her dark beauty radiated strength and grace. "We will honor our brother, for he is the harbinger of the afterlife." But just as the first worshippers began to gather, the ground trembled beneath them. The joyous chants turned into gasps as the earth split open, revealing the fiery wrath of Seth's creation. Out from the shadows emerged a titanic beast, a chimera of serpents and fire, its scales glistening like molten gold. "Osiris, your temple will be your tomb," roared the beast, its voice a cacophony of terror. With a thunderous leap, it crashed onto the sacred grounds, causing stones to splinter and hearts to tremble. The soldiers rushed forward, swords drawn, their faces a mask of valor. "Stand firm, defend our sacred ground," they shouted, brandishing their weapons against the creature. Osiris descended among them, his presence igniting hope. "Fear not, for I am with you," he declared, raising his staff, a symbol of life and resurrection. Energy crackled in the air as he summoned the powers of the realm, his voice a calming balm amidst the chaos. The battle began, a clash of steel against the monstrous hide of the beast. Soldiers charged, their cries echoing with the determination of their cause. But the chimera fought back with ferocity, its tail whipping like a tempest, sending warriors tumbling like leaves caught in a storm. In the turmoil, Osiris moved with grace, his staff weaving spells of protection, creating barriers against the onslaught. Each wave of energy that surged from him ignited the spirits of the fallen, who rose to join the fray, their spectral forms fighting alongside the mortals. "Together, we are stronger, unite!" Osiris shouted, rallying his warriors. The battlefield became a tapestry of light and shadow, a dance of life against death, as the temple stood resilient amidst the chaos. The chimera, in its rage, unleashed a torrent of flames, scorching the earth and sending a wave of despair crashing through the hearts of the defenders. "Your efforts are futile, surrender to chaos," it taunted, eyes blazing with malice. But amidst the firestorm, a fierce warrior named Amara emerged. Clad in armor that glinted like the stars, she possessed a heart forged from the strongest steel. "I will not yield, for every soul that perishes, I shall fight," she cried, charging toward the beast with relentless determination. As she leaped, the flames licked at her heels, but she pressed on, a whirlwind of fury and grace. With one powerful thrust of her spear, she struck the chimera in its heart, bringing forth the roar of anguish. The creature staggered, and for a moment, hope glimmered in the eyes of the people. But Seth, watching from the shadows, seethed with rage. "Foolish mortals, you think you can defeat chaos? Let me show you the true extent of my wrath." With a wave of his hand, the skies darkened and storms erupted. Lightning crackled as he summoned forth a tempest, sending shards of ice and thunder crashing down upon the temple. The very foundation of Osiris' creation trembled, and the structure began to crumble. "Protect the temple, we must save Osiris!" Amara cried, gathering the remaining warriors as they fought against the raging storm. They formed a protective barrier around Osiris, their bodies shielding him from the onslaught. But as the tempest raged on, the altar of Osiris, the heart of the temple, began to fracture. The divine energy that once flowed through it now flickered like a dying ember. "You cannot let this happen," Nephthys shouted, desperation in her voice. "We must sacrifice something precious. Then I shall offer my strength," Amara declared, stepping forward. "For the love of Kemet, I will become one with the altar. I will stand in the gap." "Neth!" Osiris cried, reaching out to her. "There must be another way. There is no time." Amara responded, tears glistening in her eyes. "The only way to save our people is to bind my spirit to the temple, to protect it from Seth's chaos." With that, she plunged her spear into the altar, invoking an ancient rite. The air crackled and shimmered with energies unseen before. As her life force entwined with the sacred stone, a radiant light burst forth, enveloping the temple in a protective barrier. The storm surged around them, but the light stood firm. Seth's rage crescendoed, and for a moment the world held its breath. The chaos he had summoned was met with a pure essence of sacrifice and diversion. But in that moment of triumph, tragedy struck. The altar, now infused with Amara's essence, began to fracture, and the tumultuous energy tore at the very fabric of existence. The earth shook violently, and lightning struck the heart of Kemet, threatening to rip the realm apart. In the aftermath, the temple stood battered but intact, encased in a shimmering aura of protection, while the warriors, battered and weary, clung to hope. Osiris knelt before the altar, tears streaming down his face, mourning the loss of Amara, the hero who had bound herself to the very foundation of their faith. "Her sacrifice will never be forgotten," Osiris vowed, resolve igniting within him. "We will honor her spirit, and this temple shall remain a sanctuary for all souls. We will not yield to chaos." As dawn broke anew, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the people of Kemet gathered, weary but united. They raised their voices, chanting Amara's name, celebrating her courage. The temple of Osiris, now a symbol of resilience and sacrifice, loomed large against the horizon, a reminder that even in the face of chaos, honor and destiny would prevail. Yet, lurking in the shadows, Seth plotted anew, determined to dismantle the temple and unleash a greater vengeance. The winds whispered of battles yet to come, and the hearts of the people beat with both dread and hope. Thus began the saga of Osiris, the temple, and the looming thread of Seth, a tale woven with destiny, honor, and the unbreakable spirit of Kemet. Little did they know, the true test of their resolve was only just beginning. Hash Part 2: The Wrath of Seth. Beneath the shadow of the temple of Osiris, the air thrummed with a potent mix of grief and defiance. Amara, their brave warrior, was gone, her spirit now entwined with the sacred altar. The dawn illuminated the ruins, casting an ethereal glow over the temple, but amidst its beauty a deep sorrow lingered. "Let her sacrifice not be in vain," Osiris implored, his voice like a gentle tide washing over the mournful crowd. "Every soul that enters this temple shall remember Amara, the heart that protected Kemet." The people, still shaken, nodded as tears glistened in their eyes. They placed offerings of flowers and incense at the altar, invoking Amara's spirit, praying for her guidance. Yet, as the sun rose higher, a shadow loomed over the horizon, a testament to the brewing storm in Seth's heart. "Look," shouted a sentry, pointing toward the swirling dust at the edge of the valley. The crowd turned, their fear palpable as they beheld the oncoming storm. Dark clouds gathered, twisting ominously, and the air crackled with an unsettling energy. Seth, insatiable in his hunger for chaos, emerged upon a chariot of swirling tempest, its wheels forged from the very storms he commanded. "Foolish mortals," he bellowed, his voice a hurricane of rage. "You cling to hope while I shall bring forth a greater darkness." With a flick of his wrist, the winds howled, and shadows began to ripple across the land. From the depths of the earth, monstrous creatures emerged, grotesque amalgamations of nightmares born from Seth's wicked imagination. Giant scorpions with armored exoskeletons marched forth, their stingers glistening with venom, while serpents coiled around their limbs, hissing like angry spirits. "Prepare for battle," Osiris commanded, steel igniting in his voice. "We must defend our sanctum, every warrior to arms." From the crowd, the soldiers rallied, their hearts filled with the spirit of Amara. Nephthys stood at Osiris' side, her eyes glimmering with determination. "Together, we will stand against the darkness. Together, we will honor her memory." The first wave crashed upon them like a tidal force. The scorpions surged forward, their pincers snapping, while the serpents struck with deadly precision. The warriors fought bravely, swords clashing against hard shells, arrows flying through the air, yet the tide of chaos seemed relentless. "Form a line, protect the temple." Amara's fellow warrior, Capri, shouted, embodying her spirit as he led the charge. He swung his blade with fierce precision, cutting down monsters that threatened to overrun their sacred ground. For Amara, for Kemet. The ground shook as more beasts poured forth, drawing closer to the temple as protective barrier. Osiris raised his staff high, summoning energy that shimmered with the brilliance of the sun. "Let the light guide your blades," he commanded, sending forth a radiant wave that momentarily halted the advance of Seth's creatures. But Seth reveled in the chaos, laughter echoing through the storm. "You think you can hold back the tide? I will drown you in despair," he cried, conjuring a whirlwind so fierce that it uprooted trees and sent debris flying through the air. Nephthys, undeterred, called upon her powers. "By the winds of night I command, spirits of the fallen, rise and stand with us." Ethereal forms manifested around her, shimmering specters of warriors who had once fought for Kemet. They joined the fray, their remembered valor igniting hope amid the darkness. The battlefield swirled with chaos. Steel clashed against hardened carapace, and cries of valor mingled with roars of beasts. Capri fought alongside Osiris, their blades dancing in a deadly ballet, striking down foes who dared approach the sacred altar. "Together!" Capri shouted, rallying the warriors. "We can drive them back." But Seth was relentless. He unleashed a blinding bolt of lightning that struck the temple, causing it to shudder and groan. "Your sanctuary will crumble. I will not stop until nothing remains." Osiris, feeling the tremors beneath his feet, deepened his connection with the temple. "Amara's spirit lives within these stones. We shall not let you win." He summoned a surge of divine energy, channeling it through the altar where Amara's essence resided, illuminating the battlefield with a brilliant light. Yet Seth, cunning and furious, raised his hands to the heavens. "Then let the tempest rage," he screamed, and a swirling vortex of sand and wind encircled the temple, pulling at the warriors, threatening to tear them from their feet. "Hold your ground," Nephthys urged, her voice a clarion call amid the storm. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for all who have perished in darkness." With newfound determination, the warriors pressed forward, forming a solid line against the vortex. Capri, channeling the spirit of Amara, leaped into the maelstrom, brandishing his sword, fueled by a fierce resolve. "For Amara, for Kemet," he roared, cutting through the swirling chaos, each strike imbued with the essence of their fallen sister. Osiris focused, summoning the protective aura of the temple. "With every breath, we forge our destiny. With every heartbeat, honor flows through us." Energy spiraled from the altar, creating a barrier against the onslaught. But the storms grew fiercer, and the creatures of Seth surged forward. "Surrender, chaos will prevail." Seth taunted, sending forth waves of monstrous beasts that crashed against the defenders like a relentless tide. In the heart of the battle, Capri found himself surrounded, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He fought valiantly, but the sheer number of foes was overwhelming. "Osiris, Nephthys, I cannot hold them," he cried, desperation filling his voice as a giant scorpion raised its claw above him. Osiris cast a desperate glance toward Capri. "We cannot let him fall, we must unite our strengths." With that, he summoned the spirits of the fallen, calling forth their energy, intertwining it with his own. In an electrifying moment, Capri felt the surge of power flow through him. "Stand tall, brothers and sisters, we will not falter." He unleashed a powerful strike, slashing through the ranks of scorpions and serpents, carving a path toward Osiris. "Together!" Osiris called, channeling the combined strength of their spirits into a singular burst of light. The radiant energy cascaded across the battlefield, pushing back the shadows, illuminating the path forward. The momentum shifted as warriors, invigorated by the divine energy, surged forward. They struck down the creatures of Seth, their blades glowing with the power of unity. The temple, once battered, now radiated an aura of resilience, embodying the spirit of every sacrifice it held. But Seth, writhing in fury, unleashed his most powerful creation yet, a colossal serpent, 10 times the size of a warrior, its scales glimmering like obsidian. It slithered through the chaos, its eyes glowing with malice as it coiled around the temple, threatening to crush the sanctuary. "Let despair be your end." Seth roared, and with a swing of his hand, the serpent lunged toward the altar. "Protect the temple." Nephthys cried, her voice piercing through the tumult. "We fight for Amara, we fight for Kemet." Together, they charged, Osiris leading the way. The serpent's jaws opened wide, ready to devour the altar, but Osiris raised his staff high, channeling the sacred energy of the temple. By the power of Kemet, I command you to retreat. The air shimmered as the serpent halted, confusion rippling through its massive form. Death! Seth bellowed, impotent rage burning in his eyes as he watched his creation falter. Together! Osiris shouted again, and with that rallying cry the warriors surged forward, joining their energies in a final, powerful strike. Khepri led the charge, plunging his sword deep into the serpent's heart, while Osiris unleashed the full force of the temple's energy. The serpent writhed, letting out a spine-chilling roar, and the ground shook violently beneath them. Seth cannot defeat us. We are united. Khepri cried, as the sword pierced the creature's heart, the divine light erupting from within, blinding all in its path. In a final explosion of light and sound, the serpent disintegrated into shadows, and the storm abated. Silence engulfed the battlefield, the winds whispering a hymn of victory. But the cost had been great. The warriors, weary and battered, stood in the aftermath, searching for signs of life amid the ruins. Osiris gazed upon the temple, now stained with the remnants of battle. Though we have triumphed today, the scars remain, he whispered, his heart heavy with the sacrifices made. We shall honor our fallen and rebuild. As the first rays of the sun broke through the dissipating storm clouds, the people of Kemet gathered once more, weary but unbowed. They raised. ## Part 3 The Fall of the Altar. In the wake of the furious battle, the air hung heavy with the scent of scorched earth and the echoes of valor. Osiris surveyed the remnants of the battlefield, each fallen warrior a reminder of the cost of their victory. The temple of Osiris, though battered, stood resilient against the dawning sky. Its façade, once pristine, now bore the scars of tumult, but within its sacred walls thrummed the powerful essence of Amara. Yet unseen to the weary warriors, danger still lurked in the shadows. Seth, brooding over his defeat, clenched his fists in turmoil, frustration bubbling like molten lava. "This is not over, brother," he growled, his voice a dark whisper carried by the winds. "I will rain down a fury upon you that will shake the very foundations of your temple." As the sun ascended, casting rays of gold upon the land, Osiris gathered his warriors around the altar, their faces etched with fatigue but their spirits unyielded. "Today, we have faced chaos and emerged victorious, yet our trials are far from over," he began, his voice steady and resolute. "We must fortify our defenses. Seth will not rest until he sees Kemet in ruin." Nephis stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a fierce determination. "Then let us gather our strength. We shall summon the spirits of our ancestors to guide and protect us. Amara's sacrifice must not be forgotten. Her spirit shall lead our charge against Seth." Khepri, still catching his breath from the battle, nodded in agreement. "We must prepare our warriors, forge new alliances, and strengthen our magic. Chaos may have retreated, but it will return. We must be ready." As the warriors rallied, Osiris felt the weight of destiny pressing upon him. He turned his gaze skyward, where the clouds still churned ominously, a portent of Seth's wrath. "Let us begin the rites. We shall invoke the spirits of our forebears and bind them to our cause," he declared, raising his staff high as the sun bathed him in golden light. In unison, the warriors joined him in a chant, their voices rising like a chorus of thunder. "Ancestors of old, hear our call. We summon you to stand with us, to protect the sacred ground of Kemet." The air shimmered, and as they chanted, ethereal figures began to form around the altar, spirits of warriors, sages, and protectors, their faces reflecting the wisdom of ages past. But in the shadows, Seth conspired. "They think they can summon the dead to shield them from my wrath," he scoffed, his voice dripping with malice. "Let them see the folly of their hope." He stepped into the realm of chaos, summoning dark energies that swelled around him like a tempest. "I will unleash a vengeance upon them that will make this last battle seem like a gentle breeze." With a wave of his hand, he conjured a monstrous tempest, a creature born from shadows and fury. It loomed above the temple, a swirling mass of darkness embedded with fangs sharp as daggers and eyes that burned like coals. "This shall be your end, Osiris," Seth bellowed. "You will watch as I dismantle your sanctuary piece by piece." Back in the sacred grounds, Osiris and his warriors completed their invocation, the spirits of the ancestors enveloping them in a protective glow. "Brothers and sisters, we are not alone in this fight," Osiris asserted, gazing into the eyes of his warriors. "We stand upon the shoulders of giants." Suddenly, the sky darkened and the air crackled ominously. The warriors turned, their hearts racing as they felt the shift in energy. "What sorcery is this?" Khepri shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. The storm above roiled, and the monstrous form of Seth's creation descended, howling like a banshee. "Prepare yourselves, sir," Osiris commanded, raising his staff as the creature soared toward them, its maw open wide. We must protect the altar at all costs. The battlefield erupted into chaos once again. Warriors grabbed their weapons, hearts pounding as they took their positions. For Amara, for Kemet. Khepri shouted, his voice igniting the fire within each warrior's heart. They charged forward, swords raised high, determined to defend their sacred home. The beast landed with a thunderous crash, sending shockwaves rippling across the ground. "You will fall before me," it howled, lunging at the nearest soldier, its razor-sharp claws gleaming in the dim light. The soldiers fought valiantly, their movements choreographed by the rhythm of battle. Osiris summoned the energies of the temple, weaving spells that coursed through the warriors, empowering them with renewed strength. "Together, we are stronger than chaos," he cried, sending pulsing waves of energy into their midst. Nephthys, standing at Osiris' side, called upon the winds, her voice a soothing balm amidst the chaos. "Spirits of the night, lend us your strength, let your whispers guide our blades." The wind swirled around her, carrying her plea like a beacon through the storm. As the beast rampaged, Khepri fought with a ferocity that echoed Amara's spirit. He dodged the monster's slashing claws, striking back with precision. "We will not yield to darkness," he shouted, plunging his sword deep into the beast's side. But the creature roared, shaking off the blow as if it were a mere nap. "You think yourself brave, little warrior. I will crush you." With that, it swung its massive tail, knocking several warriors to the ground, their cries echoing in despair. "We will not be intimidated." Osiris bellowed, channeling the full might of the temple as he unleashed a wave of light that crashed against the beast in a brilliant explosion. The creature staggered, its form fading as the light momentarily overwhelmed it. "Now is our chance!" Khepri shouted, rallying the warriors. "Strike while it is vulnerable." They surged forward like a tide, swords raised, hearts united. The spirit of Amara coursed through their veins, igniting their courage, and they pressed on. But Seth watched from above, seething with rage at the sight of his creation faltering. "No, this cannot be," he screamed, summoning forth another wave of darkness. "I will not let you take my creation. Come forth, my children of chaos." Suddenly, from the depths of the storm, legions of shadowy figures emerged to Seth's minions, grotesque in their form, pouring forth like a tidal wave. "Your sanctuary will fall," they shrieked in unison, a cacophony that chilled the very bones of the warriors. "Defend the temple," Osiris commanded, his voice booming like thunder. The warriors formed a protective line around the altar, swords clashing against the hordes of chaos. Khepri fought fiercely, his sword a blur as he struck down one shadowy figure after another. "We will hold the line," he cried, but the shadow creatures continued to surge, relentless in their assault. Nephthys, channeling the power of the night winds, summoned forth a storm of her own. "Spirits of the storm, heed my call, let your fury cleanse this land." With a wave of her hands, lightning crackled down from the heavens, striking the minions and sending them reeling back. Yet Seth, relentless in his pursuit of vengeance, unleashed his dark magic upon the temple, sending waves of chaotic energy that rippled through the ground. The temple shook, the walls beginning to crack as the altar flickered, the protective spell faltering. "Fight harder, we cannot let him destroy what we have built." Osiris shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. His eyes darted toward the altar, sensing that Amara's essence was beginning to wane within its sacred stones. With a fierce cry, Khepri broke through the ranks of the shadow creatures, racing toward Osiris. "We must restore the altar. Amara's spirit must be awakened." Together, they focused their energies, calling upon the spirits of their ancestors to lend their strength to the altar. "Amara, guide us." Osiris cried, focusing all his power into the altar. "Your spirit lies within this temple. Rise with us." In that moment, a brilliant light erupted from the altar, illuminating the battlefield and pushing back the shadows. The spirits of the ancestors surged forth, rallying alongside the warriors, their voices rising in a triumphant chorus. "Together, we are eternal," they cried, their unity creating a barrier of light that pushed back the chaos. But Seth, witnessing the resurgence of hope, howled in fury. "You will not win this day." With a wave of his hand, he summoned forth a cataclysmic storm, dark clouds swirling violently above as lightning crackled in the air. "Stand firm, warriors, do not falter." Osiris shouted, channeling the energy of the temple, binding it with the essence of every soldier who had sacrificed their life for Kemet. The altar pulsed with a radiant glow, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. As the storm reached its zenith, Seth unleashed his fury upon the temple. "Let chaos reign," he screamed, and the hash part forward the shattering of the altar. The tempest unleashed by Seth raged with ferocity, dark-clad, swirling like ravenous beasts above the temple of Osiris. The air crackled with dark energy, and the ground trembled as if it were alive, groaning under the weight of chaos. Osiris, standing at the heart of the sacred grounds, felt the pulse of Amar's spirit within the altar, but he also perceived the ominous whispers of Seth's dark magic clawing at the edges of their sanctuary. "Together, we will not falter," Osiris bellowed, his voice like rolling thunder, rallying the warriors around him. They stood resolute, their faces illuminated by the glow of the altar, each heart beating with the memory of the brave Amara. "We have faced chaos before, and we shall do so again." Khepri, fierce and unyielding, raised his sword high, its blade shimmering with the light of the ancestors. "For Amara, for Kemet," he cried, leading the charge against the encroaching darkness. The warriors, emboldened by his words, surged forward, their spirits ignited like flames in the wind. But Seth, a master of chaos, observed their resolve with disdain. "You think you can withstand the storms I wield? You are but leaves in a hurricane." His voice echoed with the tremors of impending doom, and he unleashed a torrent of shadowy minions, monstrous shapes born from the nightmares of the earth. The creatures slithered and called forth, their presence chilling the air. Giant scorpions, their armor encased in shadow, and serpents with eyes gleaming like embers charged into the fray. "Stand firm," Osiris commanded, channeling the energy of the temple into a protective barrier around his warriors. "We fight for every soul lost and every sacrifice made. Feel the weight of my vengeance." Seth roared, summoning a swirling tempest that spiraled downward, a vortex of chaos aimed directly at the temple. The ground shook with the force of his fury, and the warriors struggled against the winds, their bodies nearly uprooted by the malevolent force. "Nephthys, channel the night winds," Osiris shouted, recognizing the need for her strength amidst this storm. "Let the spirits guide your arrows." Nephthys raised her arms, her voice echoing like the soft rustle of nightfall. "By the winds of twilight, I call upon the spirits. Let your light shine through the darkness." Ethereal figures began to swirl around her, their forms glowing as they coalesced into a tempest of light, pushing back against Seth's dark storm. "Cower before the clouds of chaos." Seth sneered, thrusting his hands toward the heavens. "Witness the fury of my creation." With a flick of his wrist, the monstrous tempest above them coalesced into a colossal serpent, its scales glinting like shards of obsidian. It descended, hissing with malice, and wrapped around the temple, squeezing with a grip that threatened to shatter the very stones. "Warriors, protect the altar," Osiris commanded, fear rippling through his heart. "We must hold firm against this darkness." Khepri, fueled by the spirit of Amara, charged toward the serpent, his sword raised high. "This is for you, Amara," he shouted, his voice a war cry as he leaped toward the creature's maw, aiming to pierce its heart. The serpent lunged, its fangs bared, and Khepri struck true, plunging his sword deep into the creature's mouth. A surge of energy erupted, rippling through Khepri as he drew on the power of the ancestors. "Feel the light of Kemet," he shouted, pulling the sword free, only to be met with a counter-strike from the serpent's tail, which sent him sprawling to the ground. "Do not fall, my warriors," Osiris urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "Amar's spirit must not fade. We need her strength now more than ever." The warriors pressed on, fighting valiantly against the tide of shadow that sought to engulf them. Khepri struggled to rise, breathless yet unyielded. "I rise for her," he growled, determination igniting within him. He rallied his fellow soldiers, the embers of hope rekindling in their hearts. "Stand tall, fight for Kemet." But Seth, unrelenting in his pursuit, conjured forth a swirling vortex of dark energy, aiming it squarely at the altar. "I will shatter your sanctuary," he bellowed, and the wind swelled violently, uprooting warriors as the ground split beneath their feet. Osiris, sensing the growing danger, raised his staff high, channeling the light of the temple. "By the essence of Amara, I command you to retreat." He unleashed a pulse of radiant energy that enveloped the soldiers, revitalizing them as it surged through the air. The light pushed back against the shadows, illuminating the battlefield with a golden hue. But the storm above only grew stronger, and Seth laughed with cruel delight. "Nothing can save you now. Let chaos eat away at your hope." With a final flick of his wrist, he sent a cataclysmic wave of darkness cascading toward the temple. "Protect the altar," Osiris shouted, and the warriors formed a human shield, standing shoulder to shoulder against the onslaught. Khepri, fueled by the spirit of Amara, pushed forward, his heart pounding in rhythm with the pulse of the altar. "Together we are stronger," he cried as the wave crashed upon them. The impact was overwhelming, sending shockwaves through their bodies, but the combined might of their spirits held firm, the light of the altar shimmering defiantly against the darkness. Yet as the dust settled, Seth's monstrous serpent writhed, and the ground began to crack beneath them. You cannot fight destiny. Seth sneered, his eyes blazing with wrath. I will tear your sanctuary apart, piece by piece. Then let us stand as one. Osiris urged, his voice resonating with the strength of the ancients. He stepped forward, the staff pulsating in his hand, and summoned the spirits of the ancestors. Amara, guide us, we will not yield to chaos. In that moment, a brilliant light erupted from the altar, illuminating the battlefield and pushing back the shadows. The spirits surged forth, their voices rising in a triumphant chorus, echoing through the air. Together, we are eternal, they cried, their unity a barrier against the encroaching darkness. Death, Seth roared, witnessing the resurgence of hope and defiance. This cannot be, I will not be undone. He summoned a cataclysmic storm, dark clouds swirling violently above as lightning crackled in the air. The dark energy coalesced above him, threatening to fall upon the temple like a hammer of despair. Stand firm, warriors, do not falter. Osiris shouted, channeling the energy of the temple, binding it with the essence of every soldier who had sacrificed their life for Kemet. The altar pulsed with radiant energy, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. But Seth's storm was relentless. The lightning surged down, striking the temple and sending a shockwave through the ground. The temple will crumble. Seth screamed, fury in his eyes. Chaos will reign supreme. With a deafening roar, the dark energies collided with the temple, shattering the sacred stones and sending shards flying into the air. Osiris, caught in the explosion, staggered backward, his heart aching as he saw the altar begin to crack and splinter. No, he cried, desperation flooding his voice. Amara's spirit lives within these stones, we must save it. Capri, rising from the rubble, felt Amara's essence whispering through him. We cannot let her fall, we must bind our spirits together. He rushed toward Osiris, urgency fueling his every step. Together, we can restore the altar. With the last remnants of their strength, the warriors gathered around the altar, their hearts beating in unison. For Amara, for Kemet, they shouted, each voice a lifeline against the darkness. Together, they pressed their hands against the fractured stones, channeling their energy into the altar. Osiris pushed through the pain, raising his staff as a conduit of divine energy. By the power of the ancestors, I command this altar to heal, he cried. Amara's spirit must rise again. And in that moment, the altar pulsed with a brilliant light, the cracks slowly mending as the essence of every warrior intertwined with the sacred stones. The spirits of the ancestors surged forth, their combined strength igniting a radiant glow that enveloped the temple. Yet Seth, witnessing his plan unravel, screamed in fury. I will not let this happen. He summoned forth a final wave of chaotic energy, a tempest so massive it threatened to obliterate everything in its path. This is the end, Osiris. But Osiris stood firm, light radiating from his staff, unyielding in the face of despair. Together, we will not yield, he declared, his voice carrying the weight of every fallen warrior. The tempest collided with the radiant energy of the altar, and the earth shook beneath them. A blinding flash of light erupted, engulfing the battlefield in a brilliant explosion.